asked to talk about stewardship from a layman's perspective, I didn't have to think too much about it because it's really become a part of everyday living for me. However, now standing up here in front of everybody at the church kind of takes me much further outside of my comfort zone than going through my notes in the comfort of my own office. And of course, my youngest son reminding me that 10 o'clock Mass being taped is going to be shown on Channel 99 in YouTube, saying, "Dad, you better not screw up or the whole church will be able to see it," really didn't offer the type of support that I think that he meant to. But stepping outside of your comfort zone is something that I'd like to say a few words about today. I know that there are many here that not only participate at St. Joe's, but do a lot more than I and have been here a lot longer than I. But for those that haven't decided what, if, how, or why to get involved, I know how you feel because it wasn't too long ago where I too was reluctant to get involved. My background is probably similar in some ways to most of yours. My wife Megan and I moved to Avon Lake about 2.5 years ago, where I was raised in South Euclid, for a few reasons, not the least of which was that she grew up in neighboring Bay Village. My in-laws built a home here in Avon Lake, so she decided it was time to move to the west side and I could join her if I was so inclined. I have 2 sons here at St. Joseph, Ryan in the 3rd grade, Connor in the 5th grade, and my oldest son Michael is a 3rd-year cadet at the United States Military Academy at West Point. The first time I heard Father speak of stewardship and time, talent, and treasure, I have to apologize to Father because I really wasn't paying too much attention. Being in sales, I cover 8 states, 3 Canadian provinces. I coach baseball. My wife is on the liver transplant team at university hospitals and can get called in at any time of the day, night, or weekend. Our kids are involved in sports and many other activities, so surely Father wasn't talking to us when he was asking for those to give more of their time, talent, and treasure. He was talking to the people next to me and behind me. But finally, after the 2nd, 3rd, or maybe it wasn't even the 4th request to take a look at the programs offered in the stewardship, we thought that maybe out of obligation and being examples for our kids, we ought to take a look. But there were 2 things that were really holding us back. The first was that we didn't think that we had the time to offer, let alone the time to commit. And the third was that we didn't want to wander outside of our comfort zone. We were new parishioners, and we were very comfortable sitting in the pew, handing in the, at that time, occasional weekly envelope. But because of that feeling of obligation, we did check a few boxes on the stewardship card, still not wanting to totally commit, but we wanted to see how it would go. I first agreed to go with my wife to the first PTO meeting in 2005. We were both outside of our comfort zone because we knew that we weren't going to know anybody and we didn't know what to expect. I remember walking into Legacy, into the small banquet room, being greeted by completely unfamiliar but very friendly faces. I soon realized that I was also the only man in the room, which again took me much further outside my comfort zone, although my wife would tell you that I didn't look uncomfortable enough. So then my wife and I debated that, well, should we consider becoming Eucharistic ministers or lectors at Mass? We didn't really feel that we were the perfect Catholics, and were we really worthy of becoming of that ministry? It was easy for us to find excuses not to. What if we trip on the stairs? What if we drop the host? What if we want to go away for the weekend? We were coming up with all sorts of excuses. What if there's some tricky words or some hard to pronounce names? It'd be really embarrassing to be standing up here and mess up a reading in front of the entire church. But a wise man once said that it's much better to read Scripture and be noticed for making a mistake than it is to read perfectly and have no one pay attention. So we both went outside of our comfort zone, her more than I, because she's not used to getting up in front of people. She's a surgical nurse, and the only people besides her colleagues that she works with are typically under very heavy anesthesia. They don't care what she looks like or what she sounds like. So for her and anyone else that goes that far outside of their comfort zone, I give a lot of credit for that type of service and stewardship. We signed up to join the couples ministry program because, after all, we're a couple. How hard can that be? Well, we had to attend a few evening sessions to get training and instruction on how best to work with the newly engaged couples and how to best assist Father. Our first session was in St. Joseph Hall, where once again we walked into a room knowing absolutely no one, and my wife grabbing my arm saying, "What did we get ourselves involved in this time?" But as it's turned out, it's actually been very rewarding, where we meet typically with 2 couples a year, talking about their anxieties and expectations of marriage, going over the sedum test results, And being that we do it in our home during a time in which we're trying to get the kids to get their homework done, ready for bed, breaking up quarrels, keeping the dog from jumping up on everybody, they certainly got a window into some realities of everyday living that maybe Father might not be able to provide. It was natural for us to volunteer for pre-Cana. As many of you know, pre-Cana is a day of marriage preparation for newly engaged Catholic couples, where the pre-Cana team gives witnesses on topics such as the importance of communication, everyday living, and finance. Well, there is one unwritten rule on the pre-Cana team that if you are late or miss the first meeting, you're assigned the talk that is a very uncomfortable talk to give, and that's on Christian sexuality. Well, luckily, my wife is very forgiving. Because of me, we missed the first meeting, and you can imagine what was our topic. I don't know if there's anything that can take you further outside your comfort zone than speaking for 30 minutes in front of 30 to 40 complete strangers with a pre-Cana team that we just met with Father sitting in the back of the room. But luckily, again, my wife being forgiving, we were able to get through it with a little bit of prayer, a lot of humor, and thoughts that maybe next time we'll just volunteer to work the kitchen. So in closing, what we first thought was a restrictive obligation or chore evolved into something that really gave us additional purpose. And I have to admit, it was a strange transition. I went from being your typical bench-warming Catholic, coming to church Sunday after occasional Sunday, to really getting an appreciation for what it meant to be Catholic and what it meant to be stewards. Ironically, as we gave our time and talent, we were the ones that were receiving the treasure. I remember reluctantly signing that commitment card out of obligation, but it resulted in strengthening my faith, my marriage, my relationships, and my friendships. And even though it's enriched our lives and our spirituality, it hasn't taken away from the daily challenges that we face. I'm far from being the ideal Catholic, the perfect spouse, or the perfect parent. There are many times in which our kids, it's the perfect Kodak moment, and other times they're lucky there's a law. So it hasn't taken away from our daily challenges or changed who we were. It's just made who we were more meaningful. But the time may come where the people that you do see volunteering at Mass, coaching a CYO sport, singing in the choir, volunteering for the St. Vincent de Paul Society, or any of the other programs that are offered, may have changes in their lives where they can't offer the same type of time, talent, or treasure. Which is why Father asks every year for you to reassess your ability and your willingness to step a little bit outside of your comfort zone and offer more of your time, talent, and treasure. I would ask, on behalf of the Stewardship Committee, that you do take a look at the social, educational, and ministerial programs that are offered. I can assure you that they don't all ask you to step as far outside of your comfort zone as I described today. Many ask for behind-the-scenes participation, but they do all offer the type of treasure that are well worth your time and talents. Thanks for listening.